Dustin, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, Rem, I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me on Dads with Mikes.
I can't wait to chat with you. I'm looking forward to learning more about you. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know, Dustin. What's your background? You're a family man, obviously. How many kids you got? How old they are? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so my son is 4 years old. I was a little bit older, as was my wife when we had our first. I was 38, she was 39, and so we were a little bit older to the parenting game. I was a personal trainer, a tennis instructor. I taught yoga, everything fitness until I was about 30, and then I got into anesthesia. So I did a 3-year master's of anesthesia program that was life-changing, a ton of fun. I'll talk to you about it a little bit more. And after I finished that, I've been practicing anesthesia for the past 7 years. So I ask people if they want the big hammer or the small hammer, they get to pick, and then and then we go from there. So I met
Wow.
my wife about 12 years ago. We're about to celebrate our 10th wedding anniversary.
Okay.
And we met
Congrats.
at the gym. Thank you. Yeah, of all places. I had just gotten a new fitness certification. She was incredible at a technique that I needed to learn how to do, jump roping. And so I said, "Hey, can you teach me how to do that?" And she laughed and said, "I guess it's a big sidewalk. You're welcome to hang out for a little bit if you like." And after that, we talked a lot of trash to each other, had a lot of fun with it, and just became great friends. And then eventually, I realized I was absolutely crazy about her and begged her if she would go out on a date with me, and she acquiesced. So it worked out really
Nice.
well. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Okay, so you got the one kid, right? 4 years old?
correct. Yeah.
Okay, boy or girl?
His name is Lucas. So he is all boy, rambunctious, 99th percentile in height and weight. He is going to be incredibly athletic. He's super smart. He's a really neat kid. I did not realize how much I was going to take to being a dad and enjoy fatherhood until it hit me in the face. And it has been so much more than I could have possibly hoped. It's just been an absolute blast.
Okay, nice. What's going so well? What do you like about being a dad so far?
I was an only child, and my dad was not around. It was just my mom. We had a very close relationship, very loving. She was wonderful as a mom. Most boys, especially who don't have a dad around, tend to struggle a little bit. And I think it was through really a Herculean effort on her part to really do everything she could to be there for me that made all the difference. My grandfather was in my life as well. I had some uncles and I had some male relationships that helped in that regard. But not having a dad around definitely affected me in some ways that I haven't really learned until more recently, as far as purpose, as far as how to engage in a healthy, balanced way with women, things like that. It took me a little bit longer, I think, to learn kind of what it means to be a man and what the healthiest attributes of masculinity are. And so being a father has been a big part of that journey to learn for myself what that means. And so in many ways, the time that I spend with Lucas is very healing for me because I feel it selfishly that I'm I'm healing psychologically and emotionally as I spend that time with him and as I teach him all these things that would have been a little bit easier if I'd known when I was younger. So that's been the really special thing for me is being able to do that for him.
Okay, and did it come naturally for you to be a present father, or was it something that you had to work at?
I think it is the opposite of natural. And maybe that's why it's so rewarding. My natural inclination since I was very young was to have a book in my right hand while I'm shifting gears, driving with a latte in my left hand, and my Bluetooth is blasting some. I don't. I do a little bit too much multitasking, and I struggle with just performing one simple activity at a time. And there's nothing like having a beautiful child who desperately needs all of your attention to remind you not to do that, and
Yeah.
how when you give 10% of your attention to 10 different things, you don't get much out of any of it. So the days that I'm really good about putting my phone away and going outside and spending, it's not just quality time, it's quality emotional effort that you spend with your children. And when I do that, I feel incredible. And so again, I know it's good for him, and I know that time that I spend with him is very good for him. But in so many ways, it's very good for me as well.
Yeah.
So in many ways, he's the reason that I'm a much better person, and I thank him for that. I think that's a really healthy thing that I tend to struggle with sometimes. Oh, I didn't get this. I don't get to have this nice car because I spent it on medical bills for my son. This sucks. And gratitude is not the easiest thing for a lot of men because there's so many of our friends who have things we don't have, and it's so easy to look at the grass on the other side and say, "Oh, they have a little bit bigger house. They have a little bit more vacation time than me. That's
Yeah.
not fair." And that envy can really get in the way. And so, spending that time directly with my son, feeling that love and knowing how tight that connection is, that fills me with gratitude. And that's something that I'm lacking sometimes. And so, spending that time with him and practicing that gratitude has made all the difference for me.
How much time do you get to spend with it? Because I
It
heard you say
depends.
multitasking, and I'm wondering right off the bat if are you spending as much time as you would like with your son?
It definitely depends. So some weeks, yes, and some weeks, no. I have the potential, I think, most weeks to spend as much time as I'd like with him, somewhere in the 10, 15, even 20-hour range. I have days of the week off specifically that I've sacrificed my social life a little bit and some activities that I really enjoyed. I traveled a lot. I had a ton of friends. I had an incredible social life for many years. And now I have less of that, but I have more time to spend with my son. Now I'll spend that with other dads and I do kid time, but I purposefully take 1 to 2 days a week that I'm able to spend with just him.
Okay.
And so I don't get to spend like 2 hours with him every day. Certainly, I don't have a job that allows me to do that, but I do get to spend a good chunk of time on weekends and on special days that I've picked with him to go do activities. One of my favorite things to do is to leverage AI to find cool activities in the area that I wouldn't have thought of. So I'll ask Google
Okay.
Gemini because it has access to Google Maps real time. So I'll ask it a very
Right.
specific question. I have a 4-year-old son. I'll even say his name is Lucas, right? He loves T-ball. He really enjoys this kind of TV show. I'll give it way too much information just to see how it processes it. And then I'll say, give me, things that are only 4-star rated or better within a 20-mile radius that I can do with him. Give me an exact itinerary. I get ridiculously over specific, and the stuff it gives me is unbelievable. Things that nobody's ever heard of,
Like
and I'm
what?
going, this is so cool. So our local area has a lot of space stuff. I'm on the
Okay.
space coast of Florida, Melbourne. So there's rocket launches 2 to 3 times a week. There are museums.
I saw your videos on X posting the launch.
Oh yeah,
Was it
wasn't that
this week or
fun?
last week? That was so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll do things like that. I keep track of the launches. We go and watch them together. He narrates the launches now. He's really funny. I'll say,
No way.
Lucas, I'll try to teach him, and he's busy teaching me. So I listen to it. And that's something that I've learned is there's so much value in listening to our children,
Oh, for sure.
teaching us things because even though 90% of the time they're all over the place, I think he said, we looked up at the moon and he said, oh, it's the sun. And I laughed and I said, close enough, whatever. It allows him to express himself and it makes him feel valuable and important. Whereas if I try to make it about myself and I say, "Oh, Lucas, I'm your dad. I'm going to teach you," there's some
Yeah.
value in that, and he's receptive to that at certain periods of time. I would say 10 to 20% of the time he's ready to listen. I'm
Okay.
ready to drop some dad knowledge on him, and it's great. The other 80% of the time, I tend to kind of go with the flow and let him. So I build the itinerary and take him to the place, and then I let him go from there. So with a 4-year-old, at least for me, I think that makes the most sense. That I create an opportunity for him to succeed. And then the rest of the time, I kind of let him go. And if it's not working, then of course I take over and kind of gently nudge him in the other direction. But so lots of cool space stuff, all kinds of kids museums, activities. I want to say we've been to every single park in Brevard County in the 4 years that we spent together because I just go and explore and I go, hey buddy, we're gonna go find a new park. So we check out all the new playground equipment. Um, and it's not expensive. These are all things that are either free or
Yeah.
very achievable. And we meet lots of new people. There's always lots of moms and dads out there with their kids. We make friends. It's a really neat way to explore and have a lot of fun together. So that has opened up a lot of new avenues, and it's pretty simple. I don't have to heavily research things. I just kind of allow it to do it for me. So it opens up a little bit more creative space for other things by essentially having a personal assistant take care of that stuff for me. It's really incredible.
Awesome. And at 4 years old, so he hasn't started school yet, right? Is he like pre-K or where's he at now?
He's pre-K. Yep, exactly.
He's pre-K. Okay. And how does that look for you on a day to day? Like, what's his schedule like? And does it match with yours, or do you get to drop him off and pick him up, or how does it go with that?
Yeah. So my wife and I are both very career focused, and that is challenging, to balance that. She it's very important for her to be successful. She works for the city and the water department, and is
Okay.
always looking for leadership roles, and plays a very vital role as a first responder. Anytime there's a problem with the water, she goes in and has to, go take care of it. So when a hurricane hits and the tap water's still on, she's a big part of the reason that's still happening. So really important stuff.
Nice.
The disadvantage to that is both of us have a tendency to sacrifice parenting time for spending that time on our careers. Now, neither of us are wasting a lot of time getting drunk or, watching 5 hours of Netflix a day, that kind of thing. So it works because we're not, kind of in that phase of our life. It's not that season for
Would you
us.
even have the time for that?
No. Yeah. I mean,
Do you watch TV
before
in
we,
the evening?
the last time I watched TV, I'll watch shows with my son. So I do watch kid shows.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you can't, run around at the park 12 hours a day. So we'll come home, we'll
No.
watch Bluey, we'll watch dinosaur shows, that kind of stuff. I watched the Foundation series last year. That was
Okay.
cool. I had 8 or 10 hours free and I was able to watch that entire series. But as far as news or regular TV or Netflix or any of that kind of stuff, maybe 1 to 2 hours a month. Um,
Okay.
and to have a
That's a
life
lot
that
less than most people, man.
right. And, if people want to spend more time consuming and relaxing and enjoying that passive kind of entertainment, I totally get that. And in some ways, I wonder if maybe it would be easier to do some more of that, but that's not how I'm built. And I'm so excited to create content to help people in the hospital. I recently became a professor, so now I'm teaching classes for anesthesia. So between all of that, I know I have so much that I can give, and that's just so much more fun than me than passively receiving. But no judgment. It's just a different choice in life.
Sure.
So as far as the schedule that I have, so we'll record, and then I'll go to bed at about 9:30. Try to get about 7 hours of sleep. Get up around 5 a.m. Have maybe 20 minutes to get ready for the day, head down to work. It's an hour commute. And then I'll spend from 6:30 a.m. until about 7:30 p.m. at work
Okay.
doing anesthesia. And then I'll drive home, get home around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So that's 3 days a week. I teach as a professor 1 day a week. Again, that's about a 12-hour day, usually about eight to
Wow.
seven, somewhere in that range. And then I take call 2 to 3 weekends, sorry, weekend days per month. So that's, another X amount there. So it's a bit more work than I'd like to be doing now, but it's really an opportunity, financially and all that to kind of get
Sure.
where we want to be. Um, so I do think about that sometimes and say, okay, this is time that I'm very careful to set aside with my son. And I truly believe that if you spend, 5 to 10 quality hours a week with your child versus 20 very distracted, low quality hours, that's an
Right.
easy choice there. Would I prefer to spend 20 hours a week of high quality time with him? I think I would. And if at some point in my life I'm able to do that, that would be great. But it is, as we said, for the topic of this, it's a balancing act, figuring out
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't. And the sacrifice I've made is I don't really watch television. I don't read as many novels and books as I used to like. I do a lot of podcasts. As annoying as the commute is, I am able to catch up on a ton of podcasts. I get a bunch of audiobooks, so I'm still able to consume a lot of information. It's just not in that relaxed, book form. Um,
Okay.
I don't really have the time or energy to drink. When I find that I'm, having alcohol, it really, I don't sleep as well. I get really tired. So I think for me to make this schedule work, I have to be very careful about what I eat and what I drink. And again, that's not for everybody. It's a big ask. So
Yeah.
when even if I'm less busy, when I'm less careful about what I take in, um, I'm really tired. I'm kind of cranky. I feel overwhelmed. But when I stay really on task and eat better, drink better, focus on gratitude, all these habits that I try to cultivate, it really works well. So
Okay.
the trick for me to balancing a lot of different challenges is to really take great care of my mental and physical health, and that allows me to do it. But if I don't take care of myself in those ways, I'm able to do 20%, of what I'm able to do today.
And you are able to do that with your schedule. I mean, it's not to be taken lightly. You know, you have a busy schedule. You even have the podcast. So do you have to schedule that in your week, the time like that to, practice mindfulness or meditation or exercise? Do you have to schedule that in and like put it in your calendar and make sure that it gets done, or you just do it whenever you have a moment to yourself, you know?
I do, and that's a great point. So whenever I have free time at work, if I have 15, 20 minutes free, most of my coworkers will sit in the break room and chat with each other, gossip a little bit, whatever it is. I'm
Right.
hitting the stairs. So I run, we've
Okay.
got six flights, and I'm running up and down as much as I can. I take students with me. So I have students about 50% of the time. Wonderful people. They're master's level students. I love teaching them. And I always, I say, do you want to do this? And some of them will say no, but most of them will say, yeah, that sounds like fun. And we run stairs together. So I've got a partner in crime while I'm doing it. So I'm able to get a lot of incidental exercise at work and in those kinds of situations. But yeah, as far as practicing mindfulness, I weightlifted a lot when I was younger. And so I have, some kind of chronic neck pain, things like that, that I have to deal
Okay.
with. That I have to schedule time for. So you're exactly right. If you don't schedule it, that's the first thing that'll go, right? Because you're not going to neglect your children. They're right there screaming for your attention.
Yeah.
You're going to
At
pay
that age,
attention to them.
especially 4 years old, I mean, he's always asking to play with you probably, right? Every time he sees you.
Yes, and you never say no to your child wanting to play with you when they're 4 years old. That's a
Yeah.
hard rule. Because I know when he's 10 and he's busy doing other things and doesn't want to spend time with me, I'm going to miss that so much.
That's what
So
we keep hearing, right? Enjoy it now because then at some point in time, they're not going to want to play with you anymore, right?
yeah. Yes, exactly. But the dirty secret to that is we don't always enjoy it, right? It's very easy to say, "Oh, he's 4 years old. He's, got all these needs. He's not behaving or listening to me, and I'd rather be watching Netflix or relaxing or something like that." And it's hard to have that mindset shift and be grateful and be happy and say, "Oh, I'm going to miss this," without really practicing it. And I'm not perfect about it. I definitely have an incredibly supportive wife who is very good about slapping me out of funk if I come home and I got, I haven't slept well, my son's sick. You and I haven't been as close together, and life is just not fair. My life sucks, kind of thing. And she'll
Yeah.
laugh and say, "Okay, let's talk about what you have. Let's talk about what you should be grateful for, and go play with your son. Go be happy. This is not great, kind of thing." So I'm certainly not perfect by any stretch, but I know that I'm happier trying to achieve at this level than I would be not pushing myself like that. I think it's something that's in our blood. My grandfather's 90 years old. I just recorded a podcast with him last week. He
No
won't
way.
quit and retire. He's wonderful. He runs his own business.
Oh,
He's
that's
got hundreds
awesome.
of millions of dollars in assets under management in Michigan, and he is a man on fire. He's up early every day, researching, reading stocks. He's had an incredible year. He's very risk on. He was buying Nvidia and Novo Nordisk and all these companies that like 10x this year, like early. And he was like, "You should buy this stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever, Grandpa. You're 90. You don't know." And I'm just watching them just go to the moon. And he calls me and taunts me and says, "Did you buy that thing that
Oh,
I
you
told you to
missed out.
buy?" I missed out so much. Yeah, I've got this great
No.
resource.
He's a wise man. Listen to him.
He is, yes. And so I really having him in my life was a big part of I think why I'm successful. Because ideally a boy has a dad that's with him all the time. But if he doesn't have that, he needs someone who is some sort of positive male role model. And my grandfather was that for me. So
Since you didn't have that for yourself, is that something that you're pushing yourself to do for your own son? Is that what's motivating you and pushing you to do that every day to be present for Lucas?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, definitely. I think recognizing the challenges that I had and what I can do for him and how I can help, that next generation is a big motivator for me. So in many ways, I'm thankful that I had the situation that I did because it meant that I knew what I was missing and how much it matters. And being able to give that to him is a big part of the motivation. You're absolutely right. So yeah, on those days when I just want to sleep in and relax and not have anything to do with it, that gets me going every day. And I go, that's my purpose. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to be a good dad. And that's been getting me going for the past 4 years. And I love it.
Do you practice that? Like, how does it go? Like, I mean, it's easy to say it like this, but do you wake up
Mhm.
and you remind yourself every day, every morning when you wake up, you say, "Oh, today, I got to be a present dad," or does it just happen in the moment? Do you have to
Wow,
write
these are
it
great
down? Maybe you have to
questions.
journal. Do you have to, or just say it to yourself? You recite it to yourself in the morning. How does it look for you?
Yeah, no, I love that you're asking me this. I've done journaling in the past, and that can be helpful, but I'm more of a mantra guy.
Okay.
And if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I said that's completely silly. Just go do what you need to do. Why do you need to, tell yourself these things?
Yeah.
So if you've ever read or seen the movie Dune, um, fear is
Nope.
the mind killer. I must not fear, was one of the mantras of one of the main characters.
Okay.
Fear is the little death. And so my son often has a lot of fear in situations, which is great. He's not likely to jump off of a building and get himself hurt. He's a pretty careful kid, which is sort of unusual for a 4 year old. I think he got it from my wife. She's pretty smart. I had a Superman cape on and I was jumping off, roofs and like always hurting myself and not as careful as he is. So for him, I have
He's
this very
cautious.
special. He's a cautious kid. Yeah. Now that may
Hmm.
change. Who knows? In 5 years, he'll be a skateboarder and doing whatever. But yeah, for now, I have to really encourage him to be brave and to try new things. I think he'd be very happy building blocks and staying home. And I'm doing my best to expose him to other things and have that bravery. You had something you were going to say.
No, I was just because you're describing your son. It's so funny because my son is exactly the same way, and his name is also Lucas.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
too
just,
funny.
yeah,
We'll have to meet at some point. That'd be a lot of fun.
yeah. He's
How old
six
is your
years
son?
old though. 6 years
He's six.
old.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay. Yeah, great. So for him, that fear is that mantra. And for me, that's less of an issue. What I need to remind myself is to be grateful and to be happy and to be present. Those are probably the three biggest challenges that I have. That's a big part of the reason, we named the podcast the Present Fathers Podcast, was as a reminder. My wife says all the time, don't make the name ironic, make sure you actually stick to that. So I try very hard. I have a lot of irons in the fire, but I try to do one iron and then do the next iron and not, be on my phone texting while I'm in the middle of something because then nothing gets done. So uh, it's usually I don't have time in the mornings when I wake up. But the nice thing is, as part of that drive to work, I now have this uninterrupted hour where I have, assuming some Florida driver isn't trying to smash into me, I have this time to have quiet time with myself. And so I spend about half of that time listening to podcasts, listening to books, whatever my educational work is for that day. And then the other half of the time, I have a really positive, healthy conversation with myself. And
Okay.
it's been a real game changer for me. I think it honestly started with my wife. I think I was having some negativity, some frustration. Um, when you're in your late 30s and you first have a child, it's very hard to not be selfish. We had incredibly easy lives. We worked hard, but as far as, we were traveling to foreign countries 3, 4 times a year. We had these, there just wasn't, we weren't really giving back to the community that much. Most of our time was spent just kind of indulging in what we wanted. And that's fine. Again, I mean, that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But when you have a child, that changes all that free time that you had. I was playing 25 hours of tennis a week competitively, absolutely loved it, and I
Wow.
knew that was something
You
I wanted
must
to
be
give up.
good.
I used to be. I haven't played tennis in 4 years now. So, there are sacrifices with being a dad. But so there were times that I would be resentful. I was this great
Mhm.
tennis player. I had these skills. I don't get to use them anymore. Instead, I have to spend them with this kid. What is, and I mean, trying full transparency, those are normal feelings for a dad to have, especially when
Oh
they're very
yeah,
young and you're on 2 hours of sleep. Don't beat yourself up. If that's you every once in a while, that's totally normal. There's no super dad who loves his kid 100% all the time. Mom's a dad. It's very normal for us to be a little bit resentful
for
because
sure.
it looks like you're a guitar player. So,
I was just about to say, look, something that I had to give up was being in a band.
mm,
And when my wife was pregnant with our first child, my son Lucas, um, I was still in the band and I was anticipating what it was going to look like when he would be born. And I have to specify though that the band that I was with, it was quite serious. We were doing shows and recording albums, nothing too fancy or too big, but they did want to go on the road at some point, you know. And for me, about to be this family guy, and I was thinking about it. Well, how am I gonna do that? What kind of dad do I want to be? Do I want to be there all the time for my son and for my kids, or do I want to be on the road and potentially miss out on milestones like his first steps or his first words? I don't want to see it on the phone. So it's something that I gave up. I didn't give up music entirely, but I gave up the band, which is something that I loved. But what I wanted and what I knew that I wanted and the type of dad that I wanted to be was a present father. So that's why I made that decision. And for sure, in the beginning, you're resentful, like you said, and you're thinking to yourself, well, hold on a second, am I making the right decision? Should I be giving up something I love because I'm having kids? But so that's a question that you ask yourself in the beginning, and you start questioning yourself and doubting yourself. But then as the years go by, you realize, you know what? That was the right decision. That's what I wanted. That's the life I chose. Does it look like, is it the same thought process that you had by giving up tennis? Because that was huge for you. So, and did you give it up entirely, or how did that come about for you?
It was a decision that I made beforehand. I
Okay.
just my wife and I didn't do any formal therapy, but we read a lot of books about successful marriages and then successful marriages after having a child and how that changes. And a big one that really impacted me was by Dr. Willard Harley. It's called His Needs, Her Needs.
Okay.
And it talks about just basic things that are super important, basic needs that you have to fulfill for your spouse. And if you're not able to, usually you'll go in opposite directions and your marriage may survive, but it won't thrive. And so he wrote another book about his needs, her needs for parents and how some of those things change. And one of the big ones was you have to be willing, especially as a man, to go in the direction with your wife. So if you go a little bit right and she goes a little bit left, you have to find a way to meet back in the center and make sure that you have activities that you're doing together. Because if you're
Right.
just living separate lives, you're less likely to have a really great marriage where you're working together. So I knew for me, she's not a tennis player. It's not really an activity that works with young kids and all that. It was something I was going to have to give up for a certain period of time. When my son is older, if he's into it, I would love to play with him. In the meantime, I play some pickleball with friends.
Okay.
You can get that done in a half an hour. It's like the ultimate dad sport. It's great. It's not a big deal if he's running around on the court because it's just a little wiffle ball.
Sure.
Whereas I mean, he'd get hurt if a tennis ball whacked him hard enough. So, it made more sense, as an activity there. I swing a lot of kettlebells. I love doing the workouts. And he's recently gotten to where, Dad, are you going to do kettlebells? Yeah. And he got it. He grabs his little 5 pound kettlebell and we do little workouts together and
Oh,
all that kind of
nice.
stuff. So, that I'm really excited about is as much as I'll miss the cute and the raw training of a neural net, right? When you see a small child, you can feel yourself imprinting on them. It's incredible. It's like the feeling of power, knowing that your emotions and your bad habits, are being transmitted directly to this beautiful new vessel is just the most amazing feeling. So I will miss that. But at the same time, being able to do some activities together. I mean, let's face it, 3-year-olds are kind of terrible at everything. So so when he's
Pretty
10 or
much.
12,
Pretty much.
yeah, he might actually be kind of good at some of this stuff. And so I'll be able to learn from him. I hope he's into totally different stuff than I am. And that'll force me again to reinvent myself and learn to have those activities with him. And I think where a lot of dads lose connection with our children is we're not willing to go with them in a direction. So if I'm a big surfer and that's all I want to do is surf, and my son says he just loves basketball, I'm going to keep surfing. He's going to go play basketball. We're not going to be that good of friends. Whereas if I really make an effort to try to learn about what he does and learn to love, he might try some surfing. I might go into some basketball, and it's easier to be friends with other guys if we do similar activities, right? No matter how simpatico we are, if all you want to do is play your guitar and podcast, and all I want to do is play tennis, we're probably not going to be that great of friends, right? And
Yeah.
families are no different. So that was a really weird revelation for me reading those books, was how honest Dr. Harley was about, look, if your activities are totally different and you're not willing to bend and meet in the middle and enjoy each other's activities together, your relationship's really not going to thrive. So my dad wasn't around. Most of the male role models in my family, great men, struggled with relationships. And
Okay.
so I knew what not to do. I had all these frameworks of, okay, this happened and then 10 years later, divorce. This happened and then 10 years later, divorce, kind of thing. I saw that over and over with friends and family. And so again, I knew what not to do, but I didn't necessarily have a great framework for what to do. So I'm very glad I got married a little bit later. I had some time to develop some wisdom, learn from some incredible people through their writing. And that was some of the wisdom that I got, was that you have to bend and compromise and be willing to move in the direction of your family. And that's really hard as dads, right? We have these
Yeah.
massive egos. We're good at stuff, we're really talented, why don't they just want to do what we want to do, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
100 years ago, that's how it was. Women basically just kind of did whatever their husband wanted to do. And generally speaking, it was a completely different, kind of environment. It's not like that anymore. So for very, it's wonderful. I mean, I love the fact that my wife has separate interests and that I'm learning from her. And, um, I think it's great, but it's very different from the environment that our grandfathers grew up in. And so they have a lot of wisdom and a lot of great things that we can learn from, but we also have to adapt to a lot of changes that we've seen in society. I think what I read recently was that millennial men, you're a millennial as well, Rem?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So millennial men spend 3 times as much time with our children as our grandfathers did because it was just standard. The guy worked and then he went and
Yeah,
hung
that's
out
how
with
it
his
was back then.
friends,
Yeah.
went to the golf course, whatever. And then maybe spent a couple hours a week with his kids. But women did all the child rearing. And I think in a lot of ways now that as men, we are expected to spend more time with our kids, it's wonderful because we were missing out so much. Our grandfathers who didn't spend that time with their kids really missed out uh, on teaching that next generation and showing them skills and all that. So I think 1,000 years ago, it was more common for men and women to spend a lot of time co-parenting. And then there was maybe this 100 or 200 year very paternalistic period where it was all about the man working and going and doing his own thing. And then all the child work, went to the women.
Yeah.
And I think we really missed out as dads by going through that phase. So I think we're going back to a more natural way where dads spend more time with their kids.
Yeah, I think there's a culture shift, and yeah, and you see it on X, right? And I'm sure it's the same thing in reality that guys want to be more involved in raising their children. I think it's an amazing thing.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. And what was crazy to me is more numbers that I wouldn't have expected. I always think of the old standby that, men don't really want to have kids and women do. And so the only reason we have kids is because we just want to have sex. And so, we kind of acquiesce and go, all right, we'll have a couple of kids. That's not the case at all anymore. Something like 60, 70% of young men in their 20s want to have children eventually. And less than that, 40% or something of women want to have children.
Yeah.
So we've somehow flip-flopped to where men have the what is the joke where like you feel like your ovaries are hurting because you're like, okay, I'm 40, I got to have kids, kind of thing. And men are having more of that experience than women are. And I don't know what the cause of that is, but that's data we're seeing over and over is that interest in children is actually higher among men than it is among women.
Yeah, what do you think is the cause of that? What do you think drove that movement?
I can't even begin to speculate because it's weird. Every time I read this stuff, it doesn't make sense to me because, again, my stereotype is that women want to have children and men
Yeah.
want to go, be men, kind of thing. And that's just not how we are anymore. I think a lot of the stereotypes that we've internalized as men about being immature, about not wanting to help with child care and not wanting to do housework, those kinds of things I just don't think they're true anymore. I think you see them from television shows and certain cultural influences that try to lead us that way, but the data just doesn't support it. And I know among my friends, a lot of them as dads spend more time with their kids than the wife does. Very common. As women become more and more successful in the workforce, I think men are compensating by taking on more um, being roles as dads, and I think that's great, honestly, because there's so much we have to give and to bring to parenting that if a home is 90% the mom teaching and 10% the dad teaching, I think you're just not going to get as much if it's closer to 50-50 or even 80-20, where there's just certain special skills we have as dads that we can pass on that it's harder for moms to
The
to
masculine
teach.
side, right?
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
not
that's
to
a big
say that
one.
women can't do that, but I mean, I think it falls primarily on the father to pass that on, I think. I think
I
it's
think
our
you're exactly right.
responsibility as fathers, as men to do that and to lead them.
You nailed it. Yep. And leadership is a big one that I didn't even know mattered in relationships. I thought leadership mattered with presidents and with corporations, and that in a home, you just kind of did what you wanted and there was no leadership. And I realized that that wasn't accurate at all. I just wasn't leading or providing any kind of leadership. And I think it drove my wife crazy. And so I'm doing my best now to man the ship and provide quality leadership while still listening to her and taking what she says under advisement. But it's made us both a lot happier, and I think it's such an important lesson that it took me 20 years longer than it should have to learn. So I've had some great experiences with very wise men who have helped me understand how to lead without being a tyrant. And
Mm,
it has to be good leadership. And I have to
yeah,
take responsibility when I make mistakes as well. So there's a lot of men who say, oh, great, I'm going to lead. They enjoy all the benefits of being a leader without all of the challenges that go along with it and taking
right.
ownership when you make a mistake. And listening and taking things under advisement. It's not an easy game at all, and I'm still learning quite a bit as I go through it.
For sure. And at home, how does it look for you guys? Because you mentioned that both yourself and your wife are career driven and both extremely busy, obviously. For the house tasks, how do you guys split that up? Do you have like a schedule for the week and here's what needs to get done? You're doing this, I'm doing that. Is it traditional? How do you divide chores at home and what needs to get done?
We try very hard to play to each other's strengths. Um, for many years, it frustrated my wife very much. I spent years trying to learn to make a bed that made her happy, and I never got the corners right. There were always some issues, and it just still drives her crazy to this day. So, when it comes to, I won't do her laundry. I don't
How
think
many
that's
pillows you
healthy.
guys got on the bed? 20, 25?
Oh, 30. It's insane. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I know she loves it. And when friends come over, they're very impressed. They say, "Oh, look at all your pillows," So there's something to it. I get it. I don't understand it. But great question. So we try to break things up in a fair way that allows us to play to our strengths, and I'm able to do things that I'm good at and efficient at, and she's able to do things that she's good at and efficient at. Now the problem is that tends to work out to where she probably gets 70% of the chores at home, maybe even 75% of the time. So I do recognize that's not fair to her. And the past couple of years, I've really fought her on, you're being ridiculous. The bed doesn't need to be made this way. It's fine if it's this way. And I think I'm fighting the wrong battle there, because if it matters to her, it should matter to me. And so a goal for this year is, I don't know how many YouTube videos I'm going to have to watch. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to figure out a way to get that bed how it's supposed to look. And I think that's going to really surprise and delight her. And that's a big thing that I go for as well, is uh, we don't have as much time to enjoy together as we used to. So when we do spend time together, I really get a kick out of really surprising her and showing her some things she wasn't expecting, and really going above and beyond and being able to give her some things, she wasn't expecting. So I think this year that's going to be learning to get some things done that I absolutely refused to do before. And if I really put my mind to it, I think I can do it. I can get it right. This doesn't seem like a big deal to most people, but this is really hard for me. She's very demanding. These are things have to be a certain way. And again, rather than saying you're being silly, why are you so anal retentive? I need to recognize this matters to her. I'm super anal retentive about stuff. If a dose is off by 1 microgram for anesthesia, somebody could get hurt. And so, I'm on
Yeah,
students
that's
all the
different.
time about it's got to be exactly this way. It's different, but it's not. It's just anal retentive in a different way.
Right.
So I think for me to say your bed making doesn't matter, I didn't realize how disrespectful I was being to her.
Okay.
And so it's not a fight that's worth winning when I could learn a new skill and be a better man and make make both of us happier in that regard. So that's, again, me trying to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And it would be easier to say you're being ridiculous, I'm not dealing with this. But I don't think that's what's going to be best for our relationship, and I'm
That
excited to
sounds
take the
dismissive,
challenge.
Yeah, I don't think
It
about
does.
anybody that's being told that they're being ridiculed and doesn't feel great, right? So,
You're exactly right, and I can be dismissive. I can be, very rude in that kind of situation, and I try to recognize it. I try to apologize as quickly as possible. Dads, if there's one thing you can learn to do, apologize to your wife when you make a mistake. And don't make it an empty apology. Don't make it a fake. Okay, sorry, whatever, and then ignore it. It has to be a heartfelt apology, and then you have to
right.
really make an effort to do better. And I would say 10% of the time, I make a really good effort to do better, but that's better than zero.
Hey,
So
it's something. It's something.
yeah, and it's part of leadership as well, is recognizing when something is important to someone that you're going to do it and be better about it. And if you want to be a leader and you want to earn that role, you have to put the work in and make sure that you do it. So instead of spending 2 hours on TikTok scrolling funny videos they might enjoy, get on YouTube and learn how to
Get
make
on those
beds.
pillow organization videos if there is such a thing. I don't know. I've never looked into it. So,
I'm sure there's thousands of them. I'm about to find out. I'll let you know
two
when I
million
dig into
views
it.
per video. There's a market for
Exactly.
this.
There's got to be. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
How much of it do you think is, being as busy as you guys are, how much of it do you think it would help to let go? So, there's the main things that you need to do in the house. We all know. So, there's laundry, there's groceries, cleaning the house to a minimum. Are there some things that you could say to your wife, let's agree that, this is not such a big deal. Let's make it a once a month type of thing. Are there things like that that you're both able to say, yeah, you know what, let's not, it doesn't even matter anyway. Why am I dusting the dresser? I mean, the next day it's full of dust again.
Yeah. I that has not worked for me over the past 12 years in our relationship. I think I think there are certain things like that that are just really important to her.
Okay.
And um we have a housekeeper that helps. She comes twice a week. I'm trying to outsource as much as of it as I can, to other
Okay.
people to help with that. But I think asking her to let go on some of that stuff, and she's already let go of some, having a child in the house, there's a mess everywhere. It's just all kind of part of it. But
Yeah.
her parents are both, I mean, they have an immaculate house. The place looks like a museum. It's perfect all the time. So I know where she gets it from.
That's
And
where
it's
she gets
wonderful.
it from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I go over there and I'm like, this is great. And do they spend too much time cleaning and making their house really nice? I think they do. But it also brings them a lot of joy, and
Mm,
that's something I like doing. So, that's okay. So it's just different priorities. So in her case, I think asking her to let go, maybe if she would meet me at 10 or 20%. And I think if I'm willing to give her a couple things, make the bed better, when I vacuum, I don't get apparently you're supposed to do angles a certain way when you vacuum so that it looks better. I just randomly vacuum
what
in
do you
different
mean?
directions.
So do
Okay,
I.
so yeah, no, apparently that's not right. Apparently
Oh
you're
no.
supposed to get like these different angles so that it looks, and it looks amazing. When she vacuums, it looks completely different than when I vacuum, even though we both did the same job. So I have some learning to do to get these techniques down.
So do I,
And
apparently. I didn't even know
well,
this was a thing.
right. Well, luckily for you, it doesn't sound like your wife worries about that too much. But so score. Exactly. Love it. Yeah. So in my case, I think if I'm able to give her that and come to her and say, hey, this matters to your family, this matters to you, that matters to me. I love you, and I'm going to do that. If I give her that, I think she will let go of some other things.
Okay.
But if I'm dismissive and rude and say, we don't even need to vacuum. Why are you doing this? This is ridiculous. What are you talking about? She's going to come back with compensatory more. I'm going to clean more. And I'm going to do all these things, to really show you how important it is. And so I don't think it's fair for me to ask and say, you need to let this go if I don't meet her somewhere in the middle and provide some compromise. That's kind of my understanding here.
Sure. No, for sure. Some things are important to her. It's like we said before, it's disrespectful to dismiss it, right? If it's that important to her, then, I'm sure at some point you do compromise on certain things.
Yeah. And we tease each other all the time. I made a video. Apparently, so she has these special towels that I'm not allowed to use that are in the bathroom.
The
Right?
guest
They're
towels,
show
right?
the guest towels. Exactly. Yeah. So I get out of the shower. I use the guest towel. She's so mad. What are you doing? I have to wash these, but they're clean towels that are out. I don't understand. Anyways, I didn't understand the guest towel thing either. But I haven't used the guest towel in probably a year. So we're kicking butt there. I'm making progress. So
Progress. Awesome.
yeah, exactly. We tease each other all the time. But she's really good about meeting me where I need to be, and so the key is I need to meet there, and make sure that we have that compromise. But it's all
Great.
in good fun. If it gets to where we're angry with each other, or where there's, and when I was in my 20s, I legitimately got angry with people if they differed on these things. I say, why are you wasting your time? This is so much emotional and physical energy you're spending on this. There's better things to do with your time, and I'm recognizing more and more the value of having a nice clean space. It really is wonderful and satisfying. It feels good to come and sit down and go, okay, wow, I'm in like a zen, kind of environment. So I'm really starting to get it and enjoying the benefits of it. And in that case, of course, I have to then contribute to it and make sure that I'm allowing her to have those same feelings of zen and enjoyment there.
For sure. Dustin, let
Yeah.
me ask you, do you have time to date your wife?
We make time.
You make
Um,
time. Okay.
we do. Yeah, definitely. Her parents lived in Georgia for many years, and then when we moved down to Florida, they bought a house a couple miles down the road. So having her parents there is
Nice.
incredible. They love to spend time. Lucas is their only grandson, and so they they spend a lot of time with him. Whenever I have a problem that needs to be solved, I just complain about it in the operating room. So we're doing our surgeries, we're talking. And I can't find a babysitter, driving me crazy. And then sure enough, one of the surgical nurses says, "My daughter's 16. She'd love to make some extra money." Boom, get her number, got a babysitter.
All right.
Good to go. I don't know what to do tonight. What do you guys think? I'm trying to take my wife out. Oh, I love this place. I love that place. The operating room is like this superpower of incredible because you have everyone's captive attention, right? We all have to be focused. There's 12 of us on making sure this
I hope
patient
so.
does well. Yeah, exactly. And so we're doing this and we have all kinds of different things we talk about. And if if you can solve someone's problem, you're going to do it if you can, especially if it means that your kid can make some extra money. It's great. So um, I had a good friend who at the time I thought was crazy, but he said, spend as much money as you can on babysitting because it'll be the best money you've ever spent. Because if you don't date your wife, you're going to have a really bad time. So we go out, if not once a week, once every 2 weeks. We'll spend at least a couple hours, enjoying a restaurant, going out to see a play. Sometimes we'll just go shopping together and, just talk and have fun like that. So we definitely have prioritized spending time together and making sure it's quality time. So we
Nice.
don't have a ton of time together where we're just hanging out together because a lot of times I'm off spending time with Lucas and she's engaging in her activities at home. She loves to garden. She's got a lot of hobbies as far as that goes, and so uh, it often makes more sense for me to go spend time with him doing stuff while she's doing other things. And so we don't. I would say we only spend probably 10 to 15 hours of actually talking and really in the same proximity and really close together, which is definitely not
Okay.
as much as some people have. But I try to make sure at least 5 of those hours are talking, catching up, um, enjoying each other's company, making sure we're doing well. So I'm glad you asked me that because I think if we didn't take that time to date each other, we would not get along as well as we do. But her sense of humor is impeccable.
Okay.
Uh, she'll read whenever someone trolls me and sends a really nasty message on Twitter or something like that. She'll read that message in a sarcastic voice to me, and it kills me every single time. I'll post an article and someone will say, "You're dumb. Why'd you post that stupid article?" And she'll read it in like a funny voice and just make fun of me. And I'm just rolling laughing about it. So, for everyone on Twitter, if you troll me and make fun of me, we're going to be making fun of you later in the bedroom. Just so you know
There
that
you
that's part of the
go.
deal. Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's wonderful. Yeah.
It really sounds like you guys are extremely organized. I mean, you're both very busy. It sounds like you're still both able to keep your hobbies. You obviously have the podcast on top of your two jobs. You have time with your son. I'm assuming your wife also has one-on-one time with Lucas.
Quite a bit. She's wonderful with him. Yeah. Incredible teacher.
You date each other. So there's definitely some organization in there, right? So what would you say to couples or to fathers or anybody, any parent that's having trouble and they're complaining about, oh, I don't have time anymore to play guitar, or I don't have time anymore to see my friends like I used to, and maybe they're less busy than you. So, I mean, you're the perfect example of extremely busy dad, full-time jobs, hobbies, dating your wife, passion project on the side, and you're still able to do everything you want to do, right? That's what it sounds like. So, what would your advice be to people that maybe don't have the same opportunities as you, but maybe that's just their mindset because you have to make time for it, like you say. So, what would you advise to them?
That's a great question. And it's a very individual question. Everyone's a little bit different. Some people are
Sure.
just incredibly busy. Maybe they work 60, 70 hours a week. Some people uh, don't necessarily have the desire to be as busy as I am. And I completely understand that as well. There's days that I think sometimes, man, if I cut, a couple of, major hobbies, maybe I would be happier. But I don't think I would be. I think having a lot on my plate and being very busy makes me very happy. So
Okay.
knowing yourself and recognizing if having a lot of activities and really thriving is what makes you happy, then that's something you should definitely push for. But for a lot of men, that's not the case. They want something a little bit simpler. They want maybe one or two hobbies. If you really enjoy partying with friends and having quite a bit of beer on the weekends and that kind of stuff, it's very hard to be productive with your life. That's going to really slow you down. And as long as you recognize that and you're okay with that, that's totally fine. No judgment. We all have different things that we enjoy, but recognize that it's not going to make sense to be unhappy if you haven't achieved as much in your life, if you've prioritized things that make it harder to be productive. And so for me, I read a book by Dr. Barry Sears, Enter the Zone, when I was in high school many, many years ago. And it was all about energy management and keeping your weight where you want it to be and living longer and all these things. And it really got me excited. And I said, wow, I think this would make me happier and I would really enjoy this kind of stuff. So, and that's why I gravitated towards Twitter initially, was because a lot of the people that I follow are big on health, the Sahil Blooms of the world, the Dan
Yeah.
Goes, all these kinds of guys. They're posting this incredible stuff. And that really gets me excited. I read that stuff, it gets me pumped up, and I have these conversations with myself where I say, I'm 40 years old, 41 now, just had a birthday. If I don't take care of myself in the way that I want to, I will not be able to get as much done as I want to. So it's not a vanity thing for me. It's not I want to have these muscles or I want to have a six pack or any of that kind of stuff. It's if I want to get everything that I want done during this year, I have to take really good care of myself.
Right.
And that gets me fired up knowing, okay, if I hit these metrics and I get this done, I really can get a lot of this stuff done. And that's not just what I'm consuming, but also my information diet. Uh,
Okay.
I recognize that TikTok, Facebook, all this kind of stuff, incredibly addictive. If you're passively consuming reels, you will lose track of time. You will not pay attention to your kids. You it can in many ways ruin your life to spend too much time consuming short form social media.
It kills
uh
your productivity.
Kills your productivity. Exactly. And not everyone wants to be productive. You and I are talking about this. You seem like a very productive guy. This is something you get excited about, you love, but that's only like half of guys. The other half of guys are just not that worried about it. And that's okay. Yeah,
True.
we don't all need to be super productive, kind of, but honestly, those aren't the kind of guys that are going to watch this podcast either.
Probably not.
So
I
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
realize that. It's okay.
Yeah, we're preaching to the choir. There's a lot of guys who are very busy, and you have to figure out what it is that's really important to you and what you want to achieve, and then cut out the extraneous stuff. And save it, occasionally. I have a VR system that I'll play Beat Saber on and things like that that I enjoy. So I definitely still have some time that I waste. Maybe 4 or 5 hours a week. But I wasted like 60 hours a week when I was in my 20s. It was wild. I mean, between video games and if I drank too much, I'd probably sleep for 10 hours after that. And going out to parties I wasn't really enjoying and, all that kind of stuff. When I actually looked at my week and I went, okay, I finished my college classes and I did my job, and that took about 40 hours. Literally the rest of the time during the week, I was sleeping and wasting time. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was great. It was very
It sounds
self-indulgent.
like my 20s as well, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy. There's so much fun stuff, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in it. But as you get older and you look at, okay, I've only got so much time to really have a major impact on the world, and help my local community and be a good person and really make an impact and have a legacy for my family and my children. I can't do that if I'm wasting all this time again. And
Yeah, of
so
course.
that gets me excited to cut it down and really, be as effective as possible, and spend time with great guys like yourself who, fire me up and get me excited to talk about this stuff. Your questions have been amazing. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Dustin. Tell me about the Present Fathers podcast. Did you start that? And if yes, what was the motivation behind it?
So there are four of us, and we've all been friends for years, since college. We all started having kids around the same time, and we're constantly feeding off each other, getting advice, asking what we should do in these situations. George and Brandon have a little bit older children. I had the third oldest, and then Justin had just had his son. And so he was constantly asking us, what do I do? This is really tough. We should just get together and talk about this. So we got together on a Zoom call just like this, the four of us, and chatted about stuff. And then George was a streamer. He'd done some game streaming before, so he kind of knew about podcasting and how to set it up, and said, okay, let's just go ahead and put it together as a podcast. So we
Nice.
did, recorded a couple episodes, felt incredible afterwards. We're texting each other constantly. Oh my gosh, that was so cool. We talked about this, we talked about that. We're learning how to video edit, make all this kind of stuff. And it was so much fun. And then we thought, oh, maybe we should get a guest. So we asked a few people, we were able to get some incredible guests on that really, made it amazing. And so it's just kind of grown from there. And now, there's a little bit of competition, like, oh, I got this really cool guest. Oh, I got this really cool guest. And so, we have all that to look forward to. And it's really, um, there's nothing like having the camaraderie of your friends, to build something together that feels really cool.
Awesome. Let me know, where can people find you on social media? Where can they find a podcast?
Yeah, so I'm at Dustin the Dad on X. That's where I'm most active. If you look me up, Dustin Burnham, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and then the Present Fathers podcast. The four of us, we have over 70 podcast episodes with all kinds of different incredible guests. That's on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. If you search the Present Fathers, you'll see us pop right up there. So that's the easiest way to find us.
Dustin, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe a busy guy like you had time to do this tonight.
I made a point to talk to you because I really appreciate your content. I love your writing. I think you're really onto something, and I knew I wanted to talk to you. So thank you again for your time and for your incredible questions. This has been great.
Thank you so much, my friend.